Okay, we are live, and I'm sure everyone can guess what the snafu was. And it was totally on my side. I was so proud of myself. I was just saying to Kristine that I was proud of myself because I was ahead of the game until I wasn't and realized, no, you're behind. So I'm not exactly sure what what our windows look like this morning, but we're gonna go with it. Um, And I'll give folks a few minutes to join. I think this looks we'll figure it out.
Am I blurry?
Give No, you're perfect. I just think
Oh,
the screen on my side looks this not and it's not anything to do with you. It's the way the application is set up. It looks like it's not right. But it's gonna work. Like everybody can see us. It's just not centered the way it normally is. And that's because I'm using the tool differently this today. So no worries. It is what it is. They can see you. We can have this conversation, and um, that's all that matters, really. So I will give people a few minutes to join. I know people are. I did get a couple of messages asking where we were. Good morning. Good morning.
oh,
Thank you for being here.
that's good.
Good afternoon. Glad you all are here. I was just explaining the snafu. I'm sure you all can guess had something to do with the time change. I have been up since very early, but didn't wasn't paying attention that one of the clocks I was looking at had not updated. So I was totally off, and I was so proud because I actually thought I was ahead of the game. So that's what happens. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon. Let me change my screen. Um, of course, as I'm running behind, the the trick is going to be getting to my content. All right, let me see if I can fix that. There we go. All right. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jewel Pearson. This is Miss Bohemian Soul TV. This is the Creating Home, a Tiny House series, in this segment that we're going to get into this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. This is conversations on intimate spaces. And every Sunday, I offer live content where I alternate between the conversations and these conversations and the What's Your Question, where I answer frequently asked tiny house questions. To introduce myself, I like to say that I built a kind of fancy tiny house in 2015. And since that time, I have shared my journey to hopefully inspire others who are interested in the movement. I also offer coaching and consultations to help others in their tiny house journey. And you will be able to find links to schedule with me in the video description once I update the video description, once this goes live up on YouTube. And I always say I serve up a lot of representation in the movement along the way. I want to be sure that we see us, Black and brown people and people of color in this movement. It is my intent to build figurative and literal community that is inclusive and accessible. And I hope that if you find this information and the video helpful, you'll like it, you'll share it, you'll subscribe to the channel, and also be sure to turn on the notifications so that you'll. So thank you all very much for joining. Again, apologies for the lateness. That time change just got me today. So here we go. I'm gonna get it. I am going to get it. There we go. All right. Kristine, thank you so much for joining me this morning, this afternoon. I would like to ask you, if you will, please introduce yourself to our audience today.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to do this again.
Oh,
I bow to you, Miss Jewel. You are so amazing and so inspiring. And
oh,
I'm
thank you,
just so glad
Kristine.
that we found each other and that you invited me here. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you
Um,
for joining.
yeah. So I'm Kristine. I am an energy medicine practitioner and nutritionist as well. Um, I used to live in the city. I had a wellness clinic downtown in Toronto, Canada. And I was very much in the hustle and bustle of city life. And when the pandemic happened, it just got to be too much. It was too much. And I needed to kind of make space and ground myself. So
Okay.
I just kind of found myself out here on this farm, and I haven't looked back since. I really enjoy it out here.
Excellent. That's excellent. So, before we talk about your home and get into more details as to how you ended up where you are, give us a talk a little bit more about the big. I've read your bio in some other in another article, but talk
Mhm.
a little bit about what it was like during the pandemic when you realized where you just said found myself out here. Talk about a little bit more, because it doesn't sound like tiny was your overall plan or dream. So talk a little bit
No.
more about how you ended up in a tiny home.
Yeah, so as I said, I was in the city downtown with a wellness clinic. I was starting to do well. It was a new business. And then the pandemic happened and everything changed. In Canada, the restrictions I think are more than in America. So there was a
Okay.
lot of things we couldn't do. We in the wellness industry, massage RMTs, registered massage therapists, acupuncturists, anybody in the wellness industry wasn't allowed to put their hands on anyone. We weren't allowed to cut hair. We weren't allowed to
Oh,
do anything. And
okay.
so the business just completely stopped. And when it just kept going and going and going, I I couldn't hold on to it. And all the practitioners who were renting rooms from me at the clinic also just jumped ship because they couldn't practice and they couldn't pay the rent for their room. So what were they supposed to do? I don't blame them.
Right.
I ended up having to do the same thing and just walk away from something that was my baby and I worked so hard to build. And once that happened, we still weren't allowed to practice and we had to work from home. In my work, I lay my hands on people, and it's all supposed to be about deep breathing and being relaxed. And I tried really hard to work from and have the client come in. But when they have their mask on their face and they're lying face down in a cradle, and I'm telling them, and now breathe, it's not going to happen. I literally
Yeah.
watched everybody turn red in the face, and I can't do this. I can't. So at that point, I there was that happening, and then also being Asian, um, I got a lot of, I guess, discrimination from people.
Okay. Okay.
They were actually scared of me because they thought I had the China virus and they were
Okay.
scared. They treated me differently. It wasn't pleasant, but that's the other piece. And then they started putting 5G towers up everywhere. And being an energetically sensitive person, when they put the tower like right, literally like on top of my head, because I lived on the top floor, it was causing me a lot of pain in my head.
Okay.
So there was just a lot happening, and it was just going and going and going. And I figured, you know what? I don't even really know what I'm doing here anymore. I feel like I needed to create space. People were angry at me for some reason, even though I'm born in Canada. People were angry, stressed, frustrated, depressed, sad, and being someone who's sensitive to energies, it was so easy for me to feel all of that. And I really felt the need to create space for myself. And so I just kind of happened across an ad on Kijiji to volunteer on a farm. And I went out there just to take a look. And it was just really cool how the universe works, because the farmers were healers, the farmer's wife was the healer, the volunteers were all into alternative medicine and lifestyle. So I felt like I belonged there. We all spoke the same language. And
Right.
I just, I, the energy on this farm is the most amazing, special energy. I will never leave this place until, unless they tell me to leave.
I can
It's just
relate to
so
that for
beautiful.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, tiny homes weren't my thing. It's never been my thing. It still isn't really my thing. But it's more about them saying, we really love you and we want you to be here. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay, and we'll never tell you to leave. You can stay for the rest of your life if you want. And so I thought about it, and I said yes, why not? But I then had to provide my own living space, which is why I went tiny.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Very interesting story. Almost like accidental into tiny,
Yeah,
but when you look back at it, it makes complete sense for you.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and so the other thing that you and I often have conversations, in IG messaging. One of the other things that I know this also, and you've spoken about this, was like the learning curve, like getting to
yeah,
tiny, and also being off grid. So later on, I kind of want to explore what that looked like, because I always share, like, there's still the learning curve for me in actually living tiny, but
yeah,
there was also, I also had the opportunity, in, and I guess the fortune, I would say, of researching for like a year and a half, almost 2 years. So I did have that as kind of a background or a foundation to rely on. But you're kind of
mhm,
jumping into it and learning all of the things. So I think that presents a different perspective for someone who, is kind of concerned, is this something I can do? Do I know enough? Because it's
yeah,
always,
yeah.
there's always something to learn. Even now for
Mhm,
me, there's something to learn. So I think that's important, for an important takeaway too, that people recognize.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, the other part too was that in order for me to stay here, I had to be off grid. Like they have a section away from the farm, the main house, where if the volunteers want to stay, they can. And there's no electricity, so you have to be off grid. You have to be. And so I had to learn how to live off grid and all the things that came along with not living in the concrete jungle where they have like a sewer system and a way to drain the water. It's, I have no idea and I'm still learning. So I, through this process with the work that I do, I think I've become even more grounded, even more connected to oneness and what oneness represents with the universe and the planet. I really have joined the circle of it all, having to live off grid. It's just really
Absolutely.
interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
It's beautiful and it makes a lot of
Hmm.
sense. Okay, so I am
Yeah.
going to switch the screen, and hopefully, if everything cooperates, that wasn't the screen. There it is. I want to give us a virtual tour, of the property, and this is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous,
Yeah.
gorgeous. If I didn't know you had scary winters up there, I'd say I need to live right here. But your winter's also scary. I have the benefit of watching from afar you navigate winter, so that kind of keeps me out of that area. But let's talk about the property. We'll go through your pictures.
Yeah. So this is what made me fall in love with the farm in the first place.
Yeah,
The
I can see
farmer,
that.
yeah, the farmer made these man-made ponds. They're from springs. You can actually see the spring bubbling up and the water moves into this pond. There are two ponds like this. And he also puts copper rods into the water spring where he puts um, energy into the copper rod, and which then moves into the water, which the cows drink from, which feeds the grass, everything. So everything is energy on the farm. And so this is like a huge hub of energetic water. It's really cool. And it's so
That
beautiful,
sounds
and cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
that
this is my
is
favorite
interesting.
place
The
to be.
copper, yeah, the copper rods. That's interesting. Very
Hmm.
interesting.
Hmm. Ah, okay, so these are the cows. They have Highland cows, so they're very fluffy and adorable. and I just want to like cut their bangs for them and like brush their hair.
Make sure
But
when you
they're
get ready
also
to do that, you video that. I want to see that.
I totally will. And that, but then they have these huge horns, and the male and female cows have these big horns. So even though they look very intimidating, they're super cute at the same time, and they're very gentle and they're very curious. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay,
Wait a
and
minute.
that
Hold on. Let me go
is
back.
my
Hang on. Let me
okay.
go right back. Oh, okay. Let me do this. What is happening with? Oh, okay. That let me do the picture justice because I totally missed that there was a baby there.
Yes, so cute. They have all these little babies on the farm, and they name them depending on the, I don't know what the right word is, litter or the calves. They go by letters. So each birthing season they have letters. I don't know what letter that little baby cow is, but they are so cute.
They're very cute. That's interesting. Very cool. Uh-oh, okay. So here we
Mhm.
go.
Ah, so this is on my little slice of heaven, I like to call it. This is my greenhouse. I had it in my mind since I'm a nutritionist. In school, we just looked at our books. We get to get out there and put our hands in the dirt and like look at herbs and know which ones are which. Like we went to a park once, but it wasn't enough. And so when I came out to volunteer on the farm, I thought, I am going to do it. I'm going to jump in all the way. I'm doing it. I'm going to have a greenhouse. I'm going to try my hand at actually growing something, which I've never done. So this is me trying to set up having kind of like a protected environment to grow food. I'm learning as I'm reading all of these books that maybe complete greenhouse gardening is not the thing to do. You probably have to put stuff in the ground, but I'm trying, and this is going to be my way of doing it my way with hydroponics.
Okay.
Inside the greenhouse only, so it'll be more of a tropical environment. I hope I pull it off.
I hope you do too. This is beautiful, and I'm always saying I'm looking and watching from afar. So I'm very interested in how this turns out and rooting for you for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is my solar panel tower. I have 6 panels. So for those people who are interested in doing the off-grid thing, each panel there is 390 watts a panel. So um, I have 6 panels, and then I have my inverter in the house, which will tell you the total amount of power that you have to use for your home. And so
Okay.
whenever you want to live off grid, you really need to make sure that you take into account how much energy everything in your house uses, as well as how much the house uses in power itself, and make sure you have the right sources to give you the power you need so you're not always running out.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Mhm.
Some math involved. A lot of good math.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. So this is my deck, and this is a really fun story. I don't know how to build anything, but I sure am learning now. But my mom is a genius, and she came up with this idea to just buy like docks from Namaste James
Mm,
docks, and just put them. They were the perfect height to just put up against the house, and I didn't have to build anything, and it's perfect. So this is my
that
dock
was
slash
very
deck.
smart.
Yeah,
Okay. I like that.
and
Very
I,
smart.
and I have these yoga mats out here as if I'm actually going to do yoga, but I don't because when you live off when you live on a farm surrounded by trees, there are a lot of bugs,
Bugs.
and
I knew that's what you were getting ready to say.
the deer flies are out and hungry. And yeah, there is no yoga that's going to happen unless it's like the fall when there's no deer flies out and mosquitoes.
I got you. I got you. And that makes complete sense. You and I always talk about bugs and snakes and those types of things, so I can relate at
Yep.
100%.
Yeah. No snakes. Okay, so this is in the fall. This is when I was trying to figure out, like I was saying before, about water and how to
Mm-hmm.
manage water coming up to the house. Where I live, it's not a steep hill, but it is a hill, and the water and the snow, everything that melts will come down the hill towards my home. So I had to figure out a way to get the water away. So around the house, you'll see that black pipe. That's just to catch the water and send it into the forest so that I don't have water coming right up against the house. It works.
Very nice. So
Yeah,
it absorbs the water. It's providing like a trail, a trolley type thing that moves the water in a different direction.
yeah. Uh, Water flows through the path of least resistance, and
Yes.
so you just have to like let it be caught and move. I also had to build like a barrier with stone um, to further prevent water coming near the house. And the neighbors, there's another couple in a shipping container that live like a couple minutes walk from me on the farm. They volunteer as well, and they
Okay.
also have been dealing with water and trying to figure out how to keep water from away from our houses. Yeah.
Interesting. So, talking about your house, I always love your metal exterior. The
Mm.
reflectiveness of the metal exterior. I think that's very cool. I've got metal on the back of my house, but not like the reflective. I've just got like a red roofing material, but I love that reflection.
Oh, thank you. The feel I was going for was like modern industrial for my home.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So I think I accomplished that within my budget. I mean, if at one
Absolutely.
point I was thinking I should have a house just with all mirrors, and how cool would that be? You'd never even know I was there.
Very,
But
very
then
neat concept.
I thought about birds and they would fly into it.
Birds.
So I thought,
Yes, I
yeah.
have that challenge with my windows, and I always feel awful as it
Mm,
happens. Yeah, I
yeah.
understand that completely. All
Hmm.
right.
Woo. So, so as you saw the sharp contrast from going outside of the house and then you come inside and it's just white and so bright,
Mm-hmm.
full of light and windows. And I continue with the stainless steel front and bring that theme into the house to keep that industrial modern look. So yeah, you'll see all the stainless steel backsplash, and I have stainless steel items, and having that matte black to add more of that industrial feel.
It's beautiful.
So that's what that kitchen is about.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Yes, and this is the bathroom. It's a pretty big bathroom, right, for a tiny home.
It absolutely is. You know, I'm a fan of a big bathroom. So give us step back a little bit and tell us the dimensions of your house, the length and width of your home.
Okay, so my house is 40 feet long and 10 feet wide.
Okay.
So once you do all your installation, you're looking at maybe 9.5 feet inside
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the house. Hmm.
Very nice.
That those are the
The
dimensions. Yeah,
the over the extra feet, like um generally tiny houses might be on a 24 or 28-foot trailer, but that extra
right.
people are now building longer, and those additional few feet make a huge difference.
Well, the reason why I went 40 feet long, well, one was because tiny homes weren't my thing, and if I was going to live here full time, I needed more space.
Gotcha.
And
That makes
in Ontario, Canada, the main floor ceiling height has to be 6 foot 11. And so once you have the home on wheels on top of the trailer, that's a couple feet, right? Then you have the house. So you if you wanted to have a loft like how you have, it would only be
mm-hmm.
2 feet high. Only 2 feet high. I would feel like I'm sleeping in a coffin. So I needed to make sure I had a ground level bedroom. So that's why I wanted the 40-foot long trailer so that I could have a main floor bedroom.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And then I guess let's, so after we do this do go through your pictures, I want to talk about the process for building tiny in Ontario, because it almost sounds like you had some interaction with officials as you were building your house. So I want to talk a bit about that because that's a little bit different than what a lot of us are doing here in the States.
Yeah. Oh, we never talked about my toilet.
Oh, yes, let's talk about the toilet, the Cinderella incinerating toilet.
Yes, there it is. Okay, so we talked about that because I know you were interested in it, and I guess
Yes,
I will let everybody know if you are interested in having an incinerating toilet to please, please, please do your research and look up the
absolutely.
maintenance that is required for this toilet. It is super cool. I was not in a place where I was ready to like kind of poop and scoop myself with a composting toilet. I'm just not there. I'm still not there. So I opted to spend more money and get an incinerating toilet, thinking, oh, it's going to be so great. You just have like a cup of ash and you just throw it out in the garbage, easy peasy. But it
And
is
that is the
not.
way, that is absolutely the way it reads as you get ready to purchase it. So, yeah,
Yes. And they
yes,
do
go
not,
ahead.
yeah, they do not tell you what is required until you buy the thing and then something goes wrong. So you
Yeah,
actually have to, like, it's that toilet is over 100 pounds, and I just live here by myself, and you'd have to disconnect the toilet from the wall and actually know like how to handle propane connection. Take the toilet outside, 100 pounds, turn it so that the lid of the toilet is facing the ground, and that's they literally tell you it's a two-person job, and then you have to flush that out and hold it in place to do that. Then you have to go up on the roof and clean out the chimney and disconnect the chimney from the house. Like it's crazy how much is
yeah,
required for this toilet. So
that's a whole process. And I think I just happened to see a picture or something. I can't remember how I figured out that's the toilet you had, but I was like in the ordering process, just really ready to hit purchase because um I have a macerating toilet which uses water, not as much water as a regular toilet uses. And it
mm,
I have it connected to two um tanks in the backyard that I have serviced by like a Sandy can, like a porta potty.
mm,
I am
right.
really interested in going to incinerating toilet or potentially a composting toilet. I'm not sure I'm there yet. I kind of think I am, but I'm
Mm,
not exactly sure. But somehow
mm,
I figured out you had this toilet right before I hit buy, and
yep.
because as I was sharing the information and as you're purchasing it does make it seem like
Mm,
all you have to do is, and I'm assuming the ashes are maybe down in that bottom front area that looks like it might slide forward.
yes, that's right.
Is
You take off the
okay.
little compartment on the bottom and the ash is in there, and you clean it out. But
Okay.
it is
Yeah.
not
So
as
that,
easy and
yeah,
simple as they say.
absolutely not. And I wish
No.
you had included your little diagram because this is what made me put myself on pause in ordering the toilet, because then I realized, okay, so I have to get this toilet outside. I have to clean it out.
Yep.
And listening, and then as you said, it was a two-person job, and I also live alone, and I'm thinking the last thing you want to do is ask someone to come assist you with cleaning out your toilet. Like that's the last thing you
Yep.
want to have to ask someone to do. So that is why
Hmm.
I have paused on purchasing the toilet. But the interesting thing is that that is something that's major maintenance that needs to be included in up front so that you know what you're getting into, so that you're not voiding your warranty. And the toilet is not cheap. And so, those are all the
Right.
things that people need to be aware of with this particular toilet.
Yes, exactly. So this is my bedroom. It is 10 by 12, so I guess 9.5 by 11.5 on the inside. So it's the same size as anybody would have in their condo these days. So yeah, it's a decent sized room. I can get around and I have lots of storage and
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
it's
It's
nothing much to
gorgeous.
tell. Oh, thank
Gorgeous.
you.
So there was a question that came in about the black pipe outside your house, and is that connected to the incinerating toilet? And I just passed by it and I assumed that it was. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
clarify
The
that.
toilet
Yep.
has to have, right. The toilet has to have a chimney. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So this is the entrance to the house. So on the right side of the photo, you'll see I have a bunch of cabinets. Um, on the inside of those cabinets is where, on one of them is where I house the solar power. Um, the builder put the solar power and all of the plumbing, like the all the water management stuff, in the same closet,
Not too
which is
good.
a huge no-no.
Exactly.
So I had to separate that and put power in a separate location. So in the front of the house is where my solar power is now, and that's much better. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that
this is the entrance to
that's
the
a
house.
major no-no. You don't put power and water together. Okay.
No, but that's a whole other topic about the
Yeah,
builder. But
a
yeah,
whole different conversation.
but the front door there, you notice I wanted the front door to be the at the end of the house rather than most people put it like on the side and you
Mm-hmm.
you come
Mm-hmm.
in and I think if your house is like that, I think. Um,
I have
but
doors on both. Yes.
I wanted to create visually the to fool the eye into thinking you had more space so that when you come in through the front door, your eye just travels all the way down to the end of the house and opens up.
Got it. Got it.
Which is why I put the door there. That's why there's so much white. Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Mm.
Okay, and I get this is kind of out of order, so this is a continuation from the bathroom. So sorry, I should have had that.
Yeah.
And
So don't let
yeah,
anyone ever tell you that you can't have what you want in your tiny home. You can absolutely
absolutely,
have a soaker tub. Yes, you can.
absolutely, it is gorgeous.
Yes, you can. This is the living room. There's nothing really to talk about there. It's just it's minimal. It's clean, simple.
Yep.
And this is in the winter. Uh, this is just before I had to leave my home.
Before
Because
you added the piping to divert the water. Yeah, I remember we were talking about that.
this this is no, this happened. I had to leave my home because the house froze
Oh,
and it
right,
got,
right, right.
yeah, and the power wasn't working on to the point that the batteries wouldn't charge anymore, nothing would charge, and so the house just froze and continued to freeze, and I couldn't stay there anymore. It was too cold, so I had no choice but to leave. So I left my home, but that's just before that. It's beautiful in the
So
snow.
yeah, it is gorgeous from afar for me. So what?
Hmm.
So this winter you haven't had to leave your house. So has it been because you figured something out, or how? What's the difference this winter than last winter, so that the you don't have that problem with your house freezing?
Well, that's a long story, but
Okay.
the I had to I well, first when I first moved to the farm, I did not have my own solar power. I was sharing with someone, and
Okay.
that person never moved into her home and did not maintain her home. And so because the power that we were sharing was not in my home, I completely had no control over being able to manage it. And so as her house fell into disrepair, um,
It
my house suffered
negatively
for that.
impacted you. I got
Right.
you.
And
Got you.
so
Got you. Got you.
there's nothing I could do. I had to leave and then get my own power. So that's what happened there. But now I have my own
Got it.
power and I'm back and I'm handling winter really well. There's lots of stuff I'm learning, but I'm here for it.
Okay, excellent. So just to clarify, the lack of power, the house freezing didn't have really anything to do with the being off grid and the solar, just had to do with the setup and someone else sharing the power. So I'm glad we clarified that for anybody else considering being off grid and wondering the impact.
Yeah. Hmm. Yes, I call this the antisocial pond. The other pond, there's another pond that has a dock where people come and they swim and they hang out. I like to go to this one, and this is the winter picture of the pond that you showed in the beginning. It's
Mm-hmm.
very quiet here. It's just the geese, the ducks, the swans. Sometimes there's a heron. It's very quiet at this pond. This is my favorite pond. How
Very
do I deal
cool.
with snow on a flat roof?
And a flat roof.
It's not
I'll
actually
take
flat.
a. No, it does have a slope to it.
Yeah.
If you look at it um a look at this angle, you'll see that it's sloping. It's that's the exact same slope that I have to on my, not, I'm not saying the same
Hmm.
measurement of a slope, but I have that slope, and this is the slope that's going to give you the most head space in your home.
Right. Yes,
Very
that's
nice.
just more of the
Yep.
winter. Yeah. Okay, so this is the view from my room out onto the deck, and where I don't sit unless there's no mosquitoes. It just looks nice. I don't sit there.
Look, we gotta have the, you gotta have the view.
And yeah, this is the view from the bathroom going into the my bedroom. Um, yeah, it's a lot more space than I think people think you can have in a tiny home.
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
love your couch. Very nice.
Oh, thank you. So this couch is going with the more modern minimalist feel, and it's also a day bed, so you just take off the backrest and the pillows, and it's enough for two people. They can sleep on there.
I see that it's very, very wide. And so you don't look, so do you have the to accommodate for the wheel well? Is that behind your cabinetry?
No, there aren't any wheel well. There's no wheel well anything on my house. They built it on top of the
Built on
trailer.
top. Okay, got
Right.
you. Got you. Okay.
Mhm.
And because you've already got the extra width, I
Right.
built to the end of my, to the width, end of the width of my trailer, and included the wheel well on the interior of the house so that I could maximize the width of my trailer. But since you've already got the extra width and building on top, that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Okay, and so we've talked about the deer flies, and so you didn't include this picture, but I wanted, this is something we'll follow back up on because you're
Hmm.
adding something onto your house, kind of a tiny house remix, as
Yes,
I
and
like to.
you are my inspiration for this. Yes,
So
yes, yes.
I Kristine shared this picture with me the other day as she is adding on kind of like a space on the front of her tiny house, like I've added to mine, and we've had some inbox conversations about how I did what I've done, and she's kind of following suit. So this part that you're
Hmm.
building is on the ground. It is not on the trailer or anything like that. The same way I've done mine. Correct?
Hmm. It's raised off the ground a bit. I wanted to have a
Yes.
sunken room just for a little bit of variety and just to feel like it's not just so one-sided. And I have like a remix, like you said. I wanted there to be some depth, some more. So yeah, it's
Okay.
sunken, but it is off the ground. It is off the ground on a steel frame, so that if I ever need to move, it can be separated and moved away on a flatbed truck.
Very nice. Very nice.
Mhm.
All right, let me fix my camera and get back to chatting. So one of the, oh, very good, Jewel. You did that easily. So, so, so one of the things that I always say as I introduce this conversation is that I believe that our homes tell a story about us, whether that is
Mhm.
intentional or unintentional. And I think you've spoken to that a bit as we did the walkthrough. Because I
Mhm.
believe that, for most people living tiny in their homes, there is a lot of intent that goes into the decisions, um, to get there,
Mhm.
to into in their home, and that's a lot of what we talk about in this conversation. So for
Mhm.
someone who just saw your house, what the maybe they were at the property or from the pictures, what does, in your opinion,
Mhm.
what do you want your home to say about you? What story do you want your home to tell about you?
I think that my home is basically me visualized. It's simple, it's minimalist, it's modern, it's clean, it's strong. But also, as you look at it from where you're standing, if you were to stand and look at it from the road, it's so grounded and it's so blended in with its surroundings. It's so balanced with everything. And it is quiet and it is peaceful. And I think that is me personified, really. So, yeah,
Excellent, excellent. Very,
yeah.
that's very good. Um, Another question I always ask, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts here. I always ask guests whether they see themselves as part of the movement, or do you just live in a
Mm.
tiny home?
That is an interesting question. So, as you know, tiny homes aren't my thing, but it
Right.
has become my thing. Has become my
Okay.
thing. And I had actually thought about this because I saw you ask somebody else, and
Okay.
I at first I would have said no, I'm not part of the tiny home movement. But now, as I think about it, I think I am because through this whole process, I've come to understand that having my tiny home eventually will bring me to a place of complete freedom where
Mm,
I will not have to worry about I can chip away at my debts. Like I actually have something that belongs to me now. Um
okay.
and to me it does symbolize freedom. So I guess I am part of the tiny home movement.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if you
Mm.
you kind of backed into it, but yes, absolutely part of the movement. Um, it there I think at some point like there's really no way you can not be part of the movement living in a tiny house, but I guess that it's maybe some, it's not the same for everybody, but yeah, you're absolutely part of the movement. Um,
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about the just high level. So your process in Ontario, where you said, the height of your house has to be, I think you said 6.5 feet or something like that. So in
Mhm.
building your home, it sounds like you worked with officials on with your tiny house, even though it's on a trailer. Is that correct?
I had to do a workshop with the builder when I first signed the papers to start this process. And so
Okay.
he wanted to make sure that everybody who was interested in building a tiny home with him knew how everything worked and what all the restrictions and guidelines are in Ontario to build the house that you want, so that when you give him your design, it's the right design for how it's supposed to be built here.
Okay. Okay.
Because if you
So
don't build it,
I'm sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
if you don't build it properly to the guidelines, an inspector can come in and say, you've got to scrap this whole thing. This you can't take this down the road.
So am I understanding through that process that tiny houses are legal in your area?
I think they're becoming legal in certain areas, but in most
Okay.
places it's not.
Okay. 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 So just trying to understand like why that process was necessary. Might come in and say you've got to scrap all of this if they're not legal. But I think I kind of understand it, I think. Okay.
Mm.
Um what have you learned about yourself in this journey? And you've spoken about that a little bit, but the house freezing and the navigating, figuring out the water, and some of the side conversations you and I have as you're trying to figure out how to do something, and what have you learned about yourself in this process?
I have learned I've always been a strong person, and a lot has happened to me in my life that I can say, if I can do it, you can do it. Anything I've been through so much that I'm very strong, and it doesn't matter what you throw at me, I'm pretty much able to handle it. Um, so moving out into the middle of nowhere on a farm in a tiny home off grid was something I knew was going to be a challenge, but I'm tough. I got this. I can do it. But then it actually starts happening. It's like, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but it doesn't matter. Roll up my sleeves, like I'm here. I got this. Listen, but between clients, I'm outside with a shovel and stone, like shoveling all the things and like working
Yeah.
so hard. And then I come in and like get into my zen and like
Yeah.
do my work in between. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It is so much. I mean, there's so often so much physical work that's involved. And sometimes I think about it as like, do I want to spend the money to hire somebody, or am I just going to do this work? And I always like to think of myself as like a girly girl. Like, I don't really want to be out here doing this work. But then sometimes I'll even get some quotes on some work, and the quotes will be just astronomical. And I'm thinking, I am not paying you this money when it's not even that serious. And so then I'm out there doing all the work. And for me, that kind of, we've talked about like the mulch. So I am not a fan of
Hmm.
mud at all. And so
Hmm.
the first spring here, and I was like, because there's always like the rush, and we talk about this too, the rush to get your house ready, especially in a new location, the rush to get your house ready for winter, because you need to start preparing
Yep.
that up front so that you're not waiting, because there really is no
Hmm.
fall that happens. To me, it's just like you go straight from summer to winter. So you've got to be in prep in prep mode to make sure you're getting everything together. And if you're at a new location, it's the unknown of how winter is really going to happen. So you've got to be trying to figure out all of the things. And so my thing was, I don't want to be stuck out here. I hate mud. And I know, once it starts raining, winter, it gets muddy. That's a
Hmm.
big negative for me. So I had all of this mulch delivered, and the mulch was like as tall as my house when they finished dumping it. And it was just, it was just like, okay, now I've got to spread all of this mulch. And I swear it was a week of work. And I
Yes.
was just out there. And I had the like, people kept saying, well, why aren't you using a wheelbarrow? And wheelbarrows annoy me. Like, I think there might be some newer versions, but to me it's always dump it, turn it over, and all these things. So I just had a bucket, and I was just doing all the things. But at some point, I think I was having, and it was hot. And I think I
Yep.
just heard just like an out of body experience. And that's like the second time. But it's like, okay, this has got to be done. And I'm not going to pay somebody a lot of money to do it. And there it is. It's done. And then you have a greater
Yep.
appreciation for the work that you've
Yes.
done, your home, the resilience. Like
Yes.
like you said, it's mine. And I know I put this work into it, and that's it. And that, like, I'm tough.
Yeah.
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 I was never like
Yeah.
you. I'm not a nature person. This just kind of happened, and I'm so thankful for it. But yeah, man, I'm out there in my rain boots like every day, just like in there digging and getting dirty. And this is not my thing, but I have come to really enjoy it and like getting dirty and it's so rewarding. Like you said, when you finish all the stuff you just did and you take a step back and go, wow, I did this. I actually pulled this off. Pat on the
Yeah.
back. Good for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Hmm.
I'll even say, like, from a work perspective, or something comes up and I'm thinking, can I do this? Or, sometimes where you're feeling like, I might not be able to do this. Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? All of those things. And then I sit there and
Hmm.
I realize I'm sitting in a house that I built. And now I'm sitting and so I've done it twice, and with the sunroom space and the front room space. So you've done this twice. So absolutely, whatever this is, you can absolutely do it when you just look around and realize, I did this, so I can keep doing these things. And so it is,
Yeah.
one of my videos. I said, sitting in a house that you built from the ground up is really badass, because it is, once you
Yeah.
think about what went into getting to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so one of the things that I always share, and as I introduce this session and I say I like to ensure that there's representation in the movement, I like to ensure that the concerns that people of color have within the movement that aren't widely talked about, this is a space where we can talk about it so people are aware of things that might impact them outside of the mainstream
Mhm.
tiny house movement, where those conversations aren't happening. And so I've been very
Mhm.
vocal and open in sharing my experiences as a Black woman in an RV park and in rural areas. So I'm very interested in your perspective as an Asian woman, what your experience has been in rural Ontario.
Yeah. So, when I told everybody I was gonna come out to the farm and do the tiny home thing, pretty much everybody was concerned about what was gonna happen to me, if I was going to be going out into the local bar or whatever, and then some people would see me and not like that I'm there and follow me back to my home and hurt me. That was a real concern that people around me had. Um, I I'm so thankful that I found this farm and that everybody here is very accepting, and it's all love. Like the farmers are hippies, and it's just like peace and love, man. And they're just they're not like everybody else that I have encountered around here. When I first moved in and I went to, they call it the cantina. It's just around the corner. I never went back. It was clear that they didn't want me there. There are people who won't serve me. They will not
Mm,
acknowledge me. Um, no one's actually tried to hurt me or say anything like that, but it happens. So there are places that I
that's
can and
an
cannot go
undertone,
around here. Yeah,
an undertone where you just know.
yeah. They they
Yeah,
they they just don't serve me, and they just ignore me like I'm not there. And they
interesting.
follow me around, and like I'm going to steal something or
Oh,
whatever.
I can relate
Intimidate
to
me.
that. I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
um, Yeah. Interesting, sad, disgusting. But it
Yeah.
is something that we do know about.
Mhm.
As you were introducing yourself and you were saying, with the onset of the pandemic and the impact to you as an Asian woman, because we know it was, the Chinese flu. Like, there was a sentiment, in addition to the increase in racism experienced as Black people. We knew it was a definite increase for Asian people, and so there was that, and it continues. And all of these
Mhm.
things are often very much so much more pronounced in rural areas. One of
Yes.
the reasons that I also advocate for the acceptance and the legality of tiny homes, so that in urban spaces, so that Black and brown people can
Mhm.
exist in urban spaces in tiny houses, so that we don't have to, in addition to, maybe the tiny house isn't legal as a structure, but we also don't have to add on to that the concerns that we have to experience as people of color in rural areas or in RV parks, because that's, an added
Yeah.
and unnecessary issue that we
Mhm.
shouldn't have to deal with, but it is fact. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I think,
I
and again,
actually.
this is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I there are other RV parks. Like this is not an RV park. I'm on a farm, but there are
Right.
RV parks around the area. I I thought, oh, let me just drive through and see what everyone else is doing with their homes. Like maybe I could be inspired. But yeah, I literally had just turn around and leave because they come out of their houses and they're just looking at me like, get out of here. You do not belong here. I can't even imagine trying to even thinking about moving into an RV park as an Asian person. I they would not want me
Yeah.
there for sure. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and somebody will say, that's generalization. The people who want to counter these conversations, that's a generalization, but it's also a fact. And the thing about it is, like, we don't have the luxury of moving our homes into these spaces and wondering if it's going to happen. Like at some point, the risk is too great to even try it out. And because all it takes is one person in an RV park, maybe there are 10
Mhm.
people in the RV park who are accepting it and okay, but all it takes is one person, and then I've got an
Right.
issue or you've got an issue. So like we don't have the luxury of
Mhm.
spending time in spaces and testing the waters to see if it's a safe space. And so that's something that always
Right.
has to be remembered. Yeah,
Yeah. The farmer's wife actually said that to me. She said, like, you could go ahead if you want and try to find somewhere else to live, but and I'm just being very honest, you will not be accepted there. We love you here. We accept you here. We want you to be here. You will never have to concern yourself with anything like that here.
that's
And she
important.
was telling me that personally.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And it is a caution that we have to take every day, all day long. Like I specifically know in my area, I need to, not only because like it's mud, I'm on a farm, I need to have a four-wheel drive, but I need to in this area be self-sufficient. So if I'm driving, that I can kind of really maintain my, take care of myself, or I have
Yeah.
roadside assistance so that I'm not having to rely on local people to help me, so that I know I'm self-sufficient. There are some roads and areas that I don't go into
Yeah.
as it's getting dark. I do the main highways because I know should something happen, I don't want to be in those areas at night alone. So, and
Yeah.
having the means to protect myself. So those are all of the
Yeah.
things that we have to take into account just to one, to exist in the world, and it's something that we also have to take into more account to be able to be in this movement. And it's important to have these conversations so that people are aware, and even when it's not black and brown people, so that white people are aware of what the concerns are, so they can be better allies, and they can be more aware of what's happening. And as these conversations might be happening around them, they can use their voice and their privilege
Mhm.
to impact those conversations and hopefully impact change in a positive manner. So that's
Yeah.
and why it's important for us to have these conversations. So thank you for sharing. It's often a very uncomfortable conversation, so I do appreciate you sharing that.
Of course. Of course.
um so you were already kind of on the journey, the connection to the world, the work that you do in connecting people, the grounding, all of the work that were doing before tiny house living.
Mm.
Has tiny house living and the your off gridness and all of those connections, and I think you touched on this a little bit too, has that impacted or changed your value system even more in this time?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I've become one with the whole thing. I rise with the sun. I settle down with the sun, where I never had to concern myself with those things before. I have to be aware of, is it raining? Is it not going to rain? When is it going to rain? Is it snowing? How much snow is there? Is it going to be enough to fill my well? And just having to become one with all of that and move with it and live with it, I really have become part of the cycle. And like I said, it's brought me to an even more connected place with what I do and with nature, where I'm not just reading a book now, I'm living it. It's really great.
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. And that's
Hmm.
that's beautiful.
Hmm.
I'm getting ready. This is to what we were just talking about, but I want to add that to the broadcast. um I have that same experience to a degree. Obviously, I don't do any of the work that you do, but I feel like, and I've said, like, living on this farm, I don't have neighbors,
Hmm.
and but being surrounded by nature. There, some animals out here, not farm animals, but wild animals. And I have some cats that have adopted me. you kind of
That's good.
it kind of makes you yeah, absolutely. I've adopted them as well. Like they have a feeding schedule. Like I need you all to be out here doing some work, looking out for me, and I'm looking out for you all. So we're friends. One of them even lets me
Yeah.
touch him a little bit.
Uh,
Um, but it absolutely changes your perspective. I almost say, it kind of makes you a better person. Like for me, sitting here surrounded by the earth and creation, like it's forced me to think about my eating habits. Like I really feel like, I've always wanted to eat better. Now I know, like, you can't live in all of this and still eat junk. Like you have to take care of your body better. So that's been an
yes.
awareness. So those are the things, and kind of coexisting. Like you and I have talked about, I am terrified of snakes, but I also know, they were here first. This is their world. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
be in a part of it. So like that
Hmm.
coexisting thing means something totally different for me now. In okay, like how can we all navigate this space together? You stay over there and I'm gonna stay over here, but it's not okay for me to just want to eliminate you all. This is where you all belong. So I can
Hmm.
totally relate to that.
Are you still scared of
Yeah.
snakes?
I'm still ter I am still terrified of them, but not, I would say probably not as terrified as I have been in previous years. Like before it was just gonna shut down my entire, like I need to stay in the house. I saw a snake outside. Now it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
there's a snake over there. I need to go in this direction and just kind of keep an eye on them. So absolutely, but not as bad. I, I
Man,
still
I'm not
don't,
there yet.
yeah, I still don't
Mhm.
want to be friends with them, but I have learned to kind of navigate around them. Yeah,
I
for
still
sure.
squeal every time I see a toad. I literally scream and jump. I'm still scared. But I'll get
The
there.
funny
I'll
thing,
get there one day.
yeah, the funny thing for me is I didn't realize toads were so loud. And I
Hmm.
had one under my house, and fortunately there was a contractor here working on the water, and I thought something big was living under my house, and I was like, oh my God, there's something under my house. And it finally made some noise while the contractor was here, and he was like, Jewel, that's a frog, that's a toad. And I was like, oh my God. And then I finally saw the little toad peek his head out, and I was like, you have been causing me concern all of this time because I thought there was a huge animal under my house. I can deal with you, Toad. But yeah, they make a lot of noise.
Yeah. Hmm.
I also feel like they let me know when I'm making too much noise because he gets noisier. Like if there's noise going on in here, and I feel like he's saying, "Could you all pipe it down in there?" So yeah, there's a lot of learning that takes place.
Yeah.
Um, I ask you your thoughts on the movement. I think I've one other question. So, if you were to write a book,
Hmm.
this journey now, how long have you been in the home since in your home?
I have been here 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Hmm.
Based on the person that you were when you started this journey, your journey now, the point to where you are now, what would be the title of your autobiography?
Okay, I this would be my title. It would be called um, "From Toe Up to Glow Up: A Story of Liberation."
I love it. Okay, so you put some thought into that. So tell us again, from toe up to glow up,
Yes, liberation.
a story of liberation. I love it. I
Yes,
love it, love it,
yes,
love it.
yes.
And so what so how the living in your tiny home, the work that you're doing, um what does that look like in your community? Is there some interest in your community in tiny houses based on, you've shown your friends what you're doing, and have you changed minds, or what are people thinking?
I still think it's very much so like, all right, if you want to do that, have at it. It's not for me. Um, that's pretty much what everybody thinks. But Anybody that's actually come here and seen it for themselves, they understand why I love it so much, but if they still don't want to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I got you. And
Mhm.
how far are you from like I guess like a metropolitan urban area? How far are you from?
About an hour drive, so it's not too
Okay.
bad.
Yeah, about the same for
Hmm.
me. 45 minutes to an hour. I got you.
Hmm.
Very nice.
Can I tell you about why I would call my book Toe Up to Glow Up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then this is why you inspire me so much because we share this together. I had my daughter when I was a teenager, and so
Okay.
being a single mom, a teen mom, and having to have this little person that I had to take care of, and it didn't matter what I do, what I have to do, I just have to do it so that I can take care of
Hmm.
her. And I've never been able to save. I've just lived check to check. I would still say I'm doing that now, but so that was me being toe up. And now, through the tiny home, I didn't even really know, like, this is the life I always wanted that I didn't know. And
Hmm.
now I actually own my own home and I'm living out here in nature. And the energy around here is so beautiful. And I am getting to that glow up where I have something of my own. I have the ability to pay off my debts. I'm not living check to check anymore. I can actually have something to save so that whenever my time finishes on this earth, I will actually have something left for my daughter. So to me, this is a glow up. I really do believe that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's beautiful.
And it's liberation, it's freedom. And the actual name for my house is Liberation. So I call her Libby for short. But
That
it's
is
the story of
beautiful.
me. Ah,
Yeah.
thanks. It's the story of me and it's the story of my house. And so that's why I would call my book that.
That is beautiful. I'm glad you shared that. Absolutely. I'm glad you did share that. And of course you could share that.
Mm,
And I didn't know that background.
yeah.
The single mom, like that's a whole experience. It's a whole experience as a single mom, as a black woman, a single mom as an Asian woman. It's a whole experience.
Mm,
And for me, that's exactly what I've said. This is liberation. This is my retirement plan. This is my lighter lifestyle. This is how I get to freedom. And absolutely,
yes.
I can relate to that at 150%. And so, thank you so much for sharing that. How old is your
Yeah.
daughter?
Oh, she's going to be 26 this year.
Okay. All right. My daughter will be 36 this year. So, yeah,
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I can totally relate to that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What's one question that I didn't ask outside of that year, but that you wish I had asked?
That was the question that I was going to say if you said what's the one question I didn't ask, it was going to be what would my book be
Okay.
called? That was the question.
Okay. All right. All
I
right.
thought I sat and thought about it. Like, what would I call it?
That's
Yeah.
nice. So now you've got to write it.
Yeah, I probably do.
Yeah.
Everyone tells me I should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you put it out
Mhm.
there, now you got to do it.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to reading it. So absolutely.
Okay.
All
Fire
right. So
under
I thank
the
you,
bus.
thank you for sharing your journey and your story with me. I can't like I think I knew your holistic practice before I knew the tiny home side. I can't remember how long I think we've been connected. I remember you asking questions. Um,
Hmm.
on pictures and different things as I would do things, and then we got connected as I adored your home because your design, the modern, the contemporary, and the colors, the black and white really appealed to me, and so then we connected on tiny houses. So I thank you
Hmm.
for joining me this morning. I thank you for the text message to let me know I was so behind. Again, I apologize to everybody that because I just knew I was ahead of the game until I wasn't, and I was behind a whole hour. So apologies for the late start, but thank you to everyone that did join us today, and thank you, Kristine, so much for sharing your story. And Kristine's information will be in the video description, but Kristine, tell people where they can find you and follow you and all of those things so that they can connect with you.
Sure. So, thank you so much again for having me. This is a complete honor.
Absolutely.
So my Instagram is Life in a Tiny, which I think is on the screen. And then
Yep.
if anyone's interested in my energy work and that kind of side of my life, it's underscore the energy. No, no, it's not. It's the underscore energist underscore.
Absolutely. And I will again have it in the description just in case any for anybody who wants to follow up. So you don't have to remember it, but I did want to give you a chance to share it. What else? Anything
Yeah,
else
thank you
before
so much.
we close? Absolutely. Before we close out, anything else that you want to share with us?
I guess the only thing I would say is that don't let anything intimidate you. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. You can. I came
Absolutely.
from never wanting to touch a piece of dirt ever and wearing high-heeled stiletto shoes and to this. If I can do it, you could do it. Don't be scared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is absolutely doable. And it's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I want to have these conversations to share so people can see real people that look like them
Mhm.
and their stories, the background stories, so that we're not just talking about pillows and paint colors, but we're talking about real
Right.
stories and motivation and the challenges associated you know with tiny house living and the journey. So I thank you for
Mhm.
sharing your story with us here. And so I am
It's
going
my
to close
pleasure.
out. Oh, it was
Okay.
mine. I am going to close out in, let me fix my screen so it looks right. There we go. There we go. So I thank you all for bearing with me today. I was running behind, but I think I kind of pulled it together, and this was an excellent conversation. So again, this has been Creating Home, a tiny house series. This segment is is one of the conversations on intimate spaces, and there are two segments in the series where we have these conversations. The second segment is the What's Your Question, and I alternate on Sundays with both of the segments. So What's Your Question is next Sunday. And that is where I answer some of the frequently asked questions that are in my inbox or on posts that I make. It's a live Q&A. I share tips to help someone in or on their tiny house journey. And then if you're in the audience, the chat, then and you have a question, that's an excellent time for me to answer those questions. So, and that's the free stuff that I do. I do also offer consultations and conversations, and I'll share all of that information in the video description. If you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation, I'm always up for that. If this video was helpful to you, please like it, share it, tell your friends about it, and also be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification so that you're getting notified of the content when we're going live. And so that is it. I am going to close out. I hope everybody has a great Sunday. Thank you for joining us. Kristine, hang on just a second. Have a good
Sure.
day, everybody. Thank you so much. You all take care.